Hi. Good afternoon. As you know, the Prime Minister is this week in New York at the UN General Assembly. Whilst in New York, she has a number of bilaterals, events and speeches, including delivering the keynote at the Climate Action Summit, meetings with US President Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, taking part in the Christchurch Call Leaders Dialogue, and delivering New Zealand's national statement. The Prime Minister will return to New Zealand on Saturday. This week the House will be sitting, happy of course, to answer any questions Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, should the opposition be inclined to get themselves organised and ask me. On Tuesday I will be attending the Chinese National Day 70th anniversary reception at Te Papa, and on Thursday morning we'll be speaking at the Pacific Public Service Commissioners Conference here at Parliament. And on Friday, Dargaville High School have extended an invitation to visit their building academy and meet with students and staff. As you know, today marks 2 years since the 2017 general election. 2 years since most New Zealanders voted for change. 2 years since people went to the ballot and ticked a box they hoped would topple the status quo. And 2 years since New Zealand has had enough of the 9 years of neglect of our roads, hospitals, schools, rivers and social services, and told us to get started on tackling the long-term economic and social challenges of this country. And we are making progress. We'll get to that in a moment, but first the reason why we're able to act. Well, it's called the economy, and contrary to some rumourmongers, and contrary to the evidence, it's in good shape and it is growing. More New Zealanders are working than ever before. They're earning better wages and unemployment at its lowest level in a decade. On the global issues that are beyond our control, we're investing in infrastructure to stimulate the economy, supporting innovative businesses to diversify, taking financial pressures off families and chasing more and higher quality free trade agreements. And so to our infrastructure services and natural resources, we're making a start on getting them back on track. From a list of about 100 of the government's key achievements in the past 24 months, can I name just a few? We've invested heavily in health, lowered the cost of general practice visits by an average of $20 to $30 for an extra 540,000 people. We'll fund more cancer treatments, a frontline mental health service, and secure the future of ambulances, and that's one. Two, our $3 billion Provincial Growth Fund is supporting businesses and innovating and diversifying across provincial New Zealand, where half of our people live and where an enormous amount of our export wealth is created. Three, we've canned NCEA fees, meaning savings for 145,000 households across New Zealand. Four, we've introduced new family violence laws and backed that with a record number of new police, joining the biggest and most diverse police workforce in this country's history. Five, we're cleaning up the environment that we all so much depend upon, including banning single-use plastic bags, planting 1 billion trees, and working with farmers to protect our elite soils and waterways, and to show the world that our profitable, efficient, sustainable, low-emissions food and fibre sector with sustainable farming is possible. Six, in the wake of the March 15th event, we banned military-style semi-automatic weapons, magazines and parts, and led the Christchurch Call to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online. Seven, with respect to infrastructure, we have sorted out major, long-standing infrastructure problems at the Auckland City Hospital, the Green Lane Clinical Centre, Middlemore Hospital, and the Manukau Super Clinic. We've also fast-tracked the redevelopment of the Dunedin Hospital, and we have a 10-year plan for school property to build new schools and classrooms for up to 100,000 more children by 2030. 8, New Zealand's history will be taught for the first time in our schools. And 9, we have boosted key rail investment to improve connections and get freight off the roads, as every other country has sought to do. and we're getting things back on track, which will take, as we know, more than one term. But it will not be upended by the relentless negativity of an increasingly desperate opposition that has chosen to base its brand on fake news because it has no new ideas, or is so desperate for a spokesperson that it has Stephen Joyce opining once a month in one of our Sunday papers, which is surely a comment on their present economic spokespersonship from within their caucus. But I'm sure you've worked it out yourself. For too long, New Zealanders have been paying the price of inaction. We've started to tackle the long-term challenges, and progress is progress. Any questions?
Peters, over the weekend you called Spark over here. You called Spark's streaming saga over here an abject failure.
No, I can tell where you are.
Well, you just were looking around, so I thought. Anyway, and you also said that the government would get to the bottom of the issue. You went on to say, "I can assure you, we will find out as fast as possible what on earth is not going on." Have you or any other government officials spoken to Spark officials today about the issues?
Yes, Minister Farfor has. And we've been given a whole lot of information that's new, plus significant assurances as to the future.
What information do you have now that you didn't have? And what's the new information?
Well, it stands to reason that the information we didn't have was that they hadn't done enough to make sure that it was foolproof.
Did you stream the game yourself? How was it you?
What's on my telephone? My cell phone.
How was it?
Not too flash, actually. I mean, well, it's a leap back to the black and white days, you know. And it was actually a disaster. And I kind of thought to myself, how many thousands of New Zealanders are in my boat, paid the money, took the promise, and now here watching this critical game on which so much depended, and we're putting up with this. So we do hope that Spark are on top of it, and I suggest that they better be.
Does Spark's poor performance make you reflect on the privatisation of those assets?
Now, I'm so glad that you've mentioned that, because I was there when it was happening and saying what a disaster it was. I was almost a lone voice at the time.
When you say they better be onto it in the future, if they're not, what are your plans for?
Well, it means, you know, we're back to a resource called TVNZ, which we... Pardon?
You still want to see free to air?
Well, we've got free to air coming, actually, for all the big major ones at the end of this tournament.
What processes does Spark not have in place before this then that could have troubleshooted this whole issue?
Well, you would have heard the CEO on Morning Report trying to explain what didn't happen and saying that the problem lay somewhere else in the world in terms of the quality of the utility they were employing. Well, we're going to find out whether that's a fact or not.
Do you not believe them when they say that?
Yes, I do. Because he says that, well, they've had a 3-game Glitch 3 event over the weekend. At the end of the weekend, that is. Well, let's find out whether that's a fact or not. Some people dispute that, but we'll find out.
Mr. Peters, on the census predicts New Zealand's population will reach 5 million by 2020. Do you still think net migration is too high?
Well, the reality is that it's not whether it's too high, it is whether you're getting the right people. That is, whether you're advancing the technical and skills base of your economy in a world where that is critical, not just hands anymore, or you're just taking the kind of person that would not subscribe or benefit the economy that other smart economies have focused on. In short, they organise immigration to suit their economy, not the converse.
Too high at the moment?
Well, that's one of the difficulties. We are looking at the stats, which, to be honest with you, are not as specific, not as granular as they should be, and it's very difficult to interpret. But we are putting an enormous amount of work into ensuring that what we're looking at is accurate, and we do know for a fact what's going on. But if you have a Department of Immigration that describes a returning New Zealander after 10 or 7 years offshore as being an immigrant, then we've got a problem with the stats straight away.
Are we building enough infrastructure to keep up with that growing population?
Well, it's not a matter of infrastructure. It's a matter of it's not a matter of more personality or more personnel. We've got computerisation. It should have been capable of being done with much less staff, but with a system that was foolproof, and ours has not been in the past.
Are you happy with another electorate seat in the North Island next year?
Well, that'll be a fact. Where it is, I'm not certain, but it'll be affected by Papakura, Hunua, and already beyond the margins, Rodney. As to where it goes, we don't know.
The growth areas is Northland, of course.
Yeah.
Like set up there.
But not that far north, that's the point. If you go to Rodney, it's huge growth there.
The National Party's come out saying that the figures out today might not be reliable enough. Do you think the statistics released today are reliable enough to set electoral lines?
Well, first of all, it was the National Party that put together the logistical structure to bring about the assembly of this information. Right? They relied massively upon computerisation and not call house by house in terms of that sort of information. And what the government has sought to do is to take the shortage of that information to fill the gaps as comprehensively as we can, and I believe we've done it.
The Prime Minister's only getting a pull-aside meeting as opposed to a full bilateral meeting with Donald Trump, a diplomatic slug?
No. It's what happens at the meeting that matters.
What would you like to see come out of that meeting?
Well, progress with respect to our trading arrangements with the United States. That's seriously important to us. Greater recommitment to the Pacific from the United States. And above all, an ability to agree more often than not on the way forward where world trade is concerned and human rights and fundamental issues like that are concerned.
You would like to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump in that meeting?
Well, toe-to-toe doesn't get you anywhere. I'd rather go to a meeting where we see eye to eye.
New Zealand calling this meeting a bilateral while the Americans are calling it a pull-aside and the Americans are calling other meetings at the UN a bilateral. What's the difference? What's been lost in translation?
I think nothing, actually. I've looked at the list and it is a very important meeting that the Prime Minister of New Zealand is having. I would rather wait for the outcome and the reports from your colleagues who are going to be there to hear from Jacinda Ardern when the meeting is over. And I'm confident of the outcome. We put a lot of work into improving our relations with the United States.
Last week, Mr. Peters, the Special Select Committee on Abortion Law Reform commenced its public hearings. I wonder if you share the concern that's being expressed there that the proposed changes might increase the incidence of late-term abortions.
I'd love to answer your question, but frankly, that's a decision for me and my caucus. When it comes to the vote, it's a conscience vote after all, and we want a discussion on issues like that with our caucus before we freelance, so to speak, at a meeting like this.
So you haven't made up your mind yet, personally?
It always pays to make up your mind when you've got all the information as to what everything means, and at this point in time, that information is not in.
Last week in the House, you said that the government would be making announcements about a SuperGold card this week. I was wondering if you might...
No, I didn't say this week, I said soon.
Soon, my mistake. Could you give us a little bit more detail as to what that might look like and which areas you're looking into?
It'll be very exciting for your grandparents, and perhaps your parents will look forward to, but I can't give you the details just yet. You'll have to wait.
Could you give us maybe an indication of why my late grandparents might be interested?
No, I said your parents, right?
You launched it. You launched it. You said policy to pay wave, replace a lot of other commands in the war.
I'm glad you paid attention. I'm glad you paid attention. Why didn't you write about it back then? Well, I didn't see a headline in your paper.
Has there been progress?
I didn't see a big headline in your paper. Excitement for over 740,000 New Zealanders is coming.
Will the gold card be pay wave?
It'll be a lot of things. You'll just have to wait. But it'll be exciting in the sense that 9 years of doing nothing and paying dim respect to the elderly and older senior people of this country is going to be turned around. And so it'll be brought up to date. And yes, it'll be for a lot of older people simply an electrifying experience which they should have had a long time ago.
People are some of the wealthiest people in New Zealand. Do you think those kind of targeted benefits always make sense at that sector of society and not 18 to 24-year-olds?
Well, I think that some people who you're talking about, who paid taxes sometimes at over 60 cents in the dollar, deserve a better response from the political system than they've been getting for the last 30 years from some political parties. My party's not one of those parties, of course, and we've always had respect for them. We believe that they've earned the right to retire in dignity and grace. Our job is to ensure that their dollar goes a whole lot further by putting together their buying power, amassing that of over 725,000 people in the interest of cheaper services to the elderly of New Zealand. Yes, I think we should have been doing it a long, long time ago, but I saw, people like, what's her name, Maggie Barry and others doing nothing whilst they call themselves Minister for Senior Citizens.
Mr. Peters, what was the nature of discussions between Grant Robertson and Fletcher's when they met last week?
The nature of the discussions was to have a talk at the request of Fletcher's, which I understand to be a meaningful discussion where various potential options were aired, the character and nature of which I can't share with you because no finality resulted from those discussions.
Is there any pressure coming from them to start the building again?
No, I can't say it in that way, but that's not to dismiss that they might want to be involved in some future building. It wasn't part of the reported conversation that I've heard from Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Peters, is the housing market keeping up with the population growth?
Well, the answer to that is curiously, despite the putative stumbling beginnings of Kiwi Build, the rest of the housing market's going gangbusters. The best it's been going since 1973, and that's a long, long time.
So you believe that it is?
I believe certain aspects of it certainly are, and I just picked up a paper dated, I think, the 9th of August. I don't know why I'm reading it now, but saying that, for example, in Mr. Bridges' electorate, they've had the biggest growth rate ever in housing. It's on the front page of the Bear Plenty Times, actually, for that day.
Do you mean the home price value, or do you mean in terms of construction?
No, house constructions, consents and flats, units and buildings around New Zealand.
The question is whether those consents are keeping up with population growth.
Well, it's an excellent question. I don't know why it occurs to you now, because one political party's been saying for years that to get in front of the demand side, we have to slow down immigration and get supply-side housing done. We're now getting on top of that, and I think the answer for you, though I cannot give you the definitive figures, is that the beginning of that turnaround is happening, yes.
Do you support kind of broad-based reform of the rental laws that govern tenancies? The government went up to consult on these mid last year. We haven't heard anything since. Is there a hold-up?
Well, we're out to promote responsible landlords and responsible tenants and to treat them the same.
Just back to what you were saying about slowing migration there, is the government actively trying to slow the number of people coming into the country?
Well, the government campaigned in terms of Labour and New Zealand First exactly on that, to improve the quality of immigration while slowing down its number. You know that OECD and other countries and other organisations were saying that the quality of immigration was suspect, and we're seeking to address that.
You raised earlier how important it is to know the exact statistics or have correct statistics around that. So do you have specific numbers of how much you would like to see that slow by?
I'm afraid to admit this to you, but when you're doing your best to get to the bottom of the reality of what's actually happening, it's rather a shock to suspect that the figures aren't accurate. And so we're putting an enormous amount of work into that at the moment.
Why is the government not doing population figures modelling on its new immigration policies that are coming in? Why is there not modelling on how many people you expect that to impact?
Well, whoever's done that.
The immigration minister said that there has been no specific modelling on the
I know,
latest.
but where in the world do you see that?
So you don't think that's necessary, that modelling?
No. What you need to do is look at your economy, understand that the secret of our future lies in the serious expansion in export wealth and productivity, and put in place the policies that will bring that about. And we've got a lot of work to do. We should have begun a long, long time ago. One of the great things, for example, was just 5 years ago, the dollar was going at 84 cents US. Now it's 64, and exporters have got a chance in an export-dependent economy.
A group
group of organisations representing underprivileged families have delivered a petition to the Prime Minister's electorate office demanding urgent changes to welfare. Do you think the government's moving fast enough at the moment to help those struggling families?
Well, look, I haven't seen the petition. It's the first time I've heard about it. And I have to tell you that one of the difficulties that any government of the type and character that this government has to confront an enormous backlog, and sometimes that backlog keeps building even though you're turning it around. It takes a while for us to reshape that. My answer to you is, are we succeeding with those people yet? Not yet, but we will if we keep on the pathway we're on.
Are there any changes then in the pipeline to the current welfare system then?
The current what?
Is there any changes in the pipeline to welfare currently?
Well, the whole range of initiatives have come as a result of this government, and more in the pipeline, but I can't just off the top of my head tell you exactly what they are, where it concerns those petitioners and where it concerns their petition plea, which I haven't seen. One more question.
The opposition has put a list of gone.
Hang on, did you hear that? One more question. Two. You first. Is that okay?
The opposition has put out a list of what it wants to see in the new gun legislation, which is going to have its first reading tomorrow, before they will support it. And one of them, and it says they would support a gun register per se. What are your thoughts on that?
On what the opposition thinks?
Yeah, about the list of changes.
Well, I can't describe what the opposition thinks on this matter, because they're dancing around a pinhead, and in my view, behaving in an enormously irresponsible manner in that context. All I can say what the governing parties will do is put a bill in tomorrow. I assure you that we will listen very carefully to all those submitters, and every sane and rational improvement that is out there, we will listen to as well. But to tie ourselves to a political party that wants to politicise and see some advantage in the misery of 51 people who lost their lives and scores of others who have been damaged for life, is just not something we're going to contemplate.
I just had one more question about immigration. New Zealand is encouraging foreign students to do their postgraduate education in New Zealand. At the completion of their courses, should it be easier or harder for them to gain residency afterwards?
Well, if you believe in the quality of your export education, and if you've put the money in and the investment in to ensure it is world-class quality, you wouldn't need the inducement of immigration to make up your shortfall. And that's precisely where the previous government left us. Thank you.